Return of the White Fleece.
Return of the White Fleece.
It's so cold at the moment.
It is really cold.
Yeah.
We haven't recorded all these in one day. Perhaps we should have done, but full confession, we're probably wearing exactly the same clothes in every single episode that we record. My thickest jumper and your thickest fleece.
We should pretend, shouldn't we, that we've done that on purpose for continuity reasons rather than because our wardrobes are limited and it's very chilly at the moment. I've just had to put the heating on for a boost, which always makes me feel a bit financially anxious.
Yeah, it is a bit of a concern, isn't it? Which probably leads into our topic today, because we're now on episode 6 of the Half Marathon Bootcamp.
We are.
And today we wanted to talk about injury prevention, and there's lots and lots of subtopics to this topic, I think.
Yeah.
But one of them is definitely looking after yourself. I think all of them essentially have that as a kind of subtext.
I think they all are. I think that for ages, I felt like I was looking for this missing piece in injury prevention, and I think the answer is that there isn't one. Like, you could do everything right and you could still get injured, because sometimes that just happens. But I also think that it is maybe also, in a way, a lot simpler than we think, because it's about doing all the things that we really all should be doing anyway. Do we do them? Not always, but just doing them in a little bit more of a considered way, because we're putting a lot of stress on our bodies when we're doing half marathon training. And I think this is a good point of the series that this conversation's come, because I imagine that a lot of people are getting to a point where, like, the half marathon that I'm training for is now, oh my gosh, it's like 4 weeks away or something, 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah, soon.
It's soon. And so these are some of my heaviest weeks. I've got quite a big long run coming up this weekend. I think plenty of people are probably going to be starting to really feel the burn and potentially be in danger of picking up a little injury or a little niggle along the way at this kind of time. But it's also really soon, and so I don't want to freak anybody out, but it is exactly the kind of time that if you did pick up an injury, it could really jeopardize whether you can actually do your race on race day. So let's all try and look after ourselves, and we will try and give the best advice that we possibly can from actually 2 people who, one of whom is currently injured and one of whom has had several injuries along the way. So we don't always get it right.
We don't at all. And I thought actually that might be quite a nice place to start, to talk about the injury. Like, hindsight is an amazing thing, but like, what injury have you had due to running that you think you could have actually prevented with some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today?
My classic that I've had multiple times actually has been my hip flexor, where I think the first time I ever had it, it was diagnosed as hip bursitis. And which I think is basically sort of inflamed ball and socket situation. This time round, I don't think it was as serious as that. It wasn't like, it wasn't diagnosed as anything specifically. It was just sore. But the first time, my physio, I wasn't doing any strength training basically, and my physio was like, you have got weak glutes and that's why you keep having this horrible pain, and that's why your hip is all flary and sore. And I actually genuinely did go away and pick up her advice, and it did really help with the problem. So I know that I would have been able to sort it out if I'd have listened more. But that has come up again for me, and so I think, kind of pertaining to our first point, that even if you are doing things a bit more sort of in a more of a considered way, which I now do, you can still pick things up. But that actually is something that I think I could have prevented by being a bit more in tune with my body, because I think I've known for a little while that I've had a bit of an imbalance of strength, and that maybe I need to be doing some more single leg stuff and really building my strength specifically on my left side, which is my sort of following side rather than my leading side. And I think that could definitely have stopped me from picking up the same injury again. So strength is kind of my answer. What about you?
Well, I think the injury that I used to get all the time, over and over and over again, when I first started properly running. So I think when I first started training for a half marathon about 20 years ago, was calf injuries. I was continuously tearing a calf muscle. And what I was doing was I trained for the Bath half. I think I did it like 3 times back then. And every time I was training for it, I would train for 3 months, do the Bath half, and then drop back down to doing absolutely nothing. So when I would then retrain, I would start again, 3 months before the start of the marathon. And I would do the thing that we've talked about in previous episodes, where I would just incrementally increase my long run every weekend, no matter what. Like, there was no drop down week. There was no thought about rest and recovery, and there was certainly no thought about fueling. And so the calf muscle going was definitely about overuse, and it was not listening to my body, because I could always feel it. I could always feel it, that it was about to go, and then it would go. And it just repeatedly went on and on and on. And the other thing that I didn't do was seek any medical help during that time. I didn't go and speak to a physio. I just cried. That's all I did. So now I would never load like that at a weekend. I would always, as in our previous episode, I would always have drop down weeks. I would always very carefully monitor my weekly mileage and make sure that it's only going up. Okay, this is first point. The first point is mileage. Look not just at your long run, but everything that you're doing during the week. And say you're doing 3 runs a week, just make sure that that mileage doesn't increase by more than about 10% every week. That's the total mileage, not just your long run, the total mileage. And just don't go above that. And I think that in itself can be really helpful in ensuring that you don't overload individual muscles and things like that.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, is there any time that you think you've nearly had an injury? So opposite sort of question, but that you've managed to actually stave it off and avoid it by doing the right things?
Yeah, I reckon that's my hip. That's the sort of, maybe a similar thing to you, but it's a hip that I can often feel grumbling away in the background, particularly after I do a certain amount of miles. I can feel it. And it does feel really weak. But I was beginning to feel this towards the sort of autumn of last year, and began to introduce specific strength training that targeted my outer thighs and glutes. And that has just made it just go away. It's been amazing.
That's
almost
great.
Immediately, which is weird. But I think, strength, we've spoken about it before. It's key. It's so key. And I think it has been the making of me. But I think what really irritates me about strength training is that there's so much of it.
I know.
You can end up, like, if you carry on doing what I'm doing, which is the same sort of routine down the gym, you might miss a bit. And the bit that you've missed is the bit that you actually need to build on and need to strengthen. So I guess variety is key, which I'm not very good at because I like routine.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like you said, when you notice something, going and speaking to somebody as quickly as you can, I know it can be a really difficult thing. I'm fortunate enough that we have a healthcare plan, actually, that means that we can access physio quite easily. And I must admit, I'm so much more inclined to go to a physio as soon as I feel something now. Whereas I know it can be quite expensive, but it really is like such a good way of investing in your future of running. Because even if they see you, I have had it relatively recently with a hip thing that, like I said, she kind of was like, this isn't really an injury yet, kind of thing. But I was so glad that I saw her, and she didn't make me feel silly for going. She affirmed the fact that I'd been sensible and gone quickly, and gave me a bunch of exercises that then, like you were saying, I suppose, are specific to the areas that I was clearly missing, so that I could make sure that I was making both sides of my body work equally. So then I added, to be specific, Bulgarian split squats and single leg squats into my leg routine, and that has really helped. I was going to say the other time, if you don't necessarily feel like it's a physio, or I think I nearly had a shin injury, maybe shin splints, something like that, when I was training for the London Marathon last year. And I know that it was overtraining. It was that thing that you said where I'd upped my mileage too quickly. I'd gone from 3 runs a week to 4 runs a week, plus all of those runs being longer. And I went to a sports massage person.
Oh, yes.
And he was really, really helpful. He had loads and loads of information. It was the person that encouraged me, actually. He was like, will that extra run really build your fitness with that little time to go until London? Like, he was like, I would prioritize the rest, drop that run out so that you've got an extra time to recover before your long run. And he said that he reckoned that me coming to get more regular sports massages and dropping down a little bit had potentially saved me from having something that might have got in the way of me being able to do the race.
I think that's valid. I think both of those things are valid. I think more particularly the dropping down, but I think sports massage, because it's got the word massage in, you're thinking,
it's
what can that do for me?
But no, it is really important, and like you do not have to. I was needing some TLC during that training, but I think like foam rolling, my physio is always telling me that I should be doing 5 minutes of foam rolling when I get back from my runs, which I do not do, and I will try hard to do after this podcast. Or a massage gun.
Yeah.
Bit more expensive, but a really good way of doing it from home.
A really good thing to do. A really good thing to do. And there was one thing I was going to mention as well, which I think both of us have come a cropper with, and I certainly came a cropper with in London Marathon last year. And it's something that I know colleagues of ours will have mentioned quite widely on social media, but it's worth checking your shoes as well, because most of all this other stuff is stuff that you can sort of front load. You can sort of think to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to try and put in time to make sure that I'm doing the correct mileage and my plan is in place. I'm going to do the stretching and I'm going to do the strength and all that sort of thing. And you can sort of plan it out. But if your shoes aren't fit for purpose, you're a bit buggered from the start. And I know running isn't supposed to be expensive, but that is a fib. We know that. And a good pair of shoes, I mean, as we both know, a massively good pair of shoes doesn't have to cost the earth, because you just don't need to get this year's, get last year's, get the years before. You know, you don't need the very, very latest model. But what you absolutely don't need is a pair of shoes that's worn down. So a pair of running shoes that you've had for the past 5 years, shoes where the foam is noticeably different on one side than the other, shoes where the tread has come off, shoes where your big toenails are going through the end of them. All of these things.
Me at the moment.
But sometimes, there might only be like a millimeter's difference between your shoes, like a brand new pair, and the way that your shoes now run in. But that millimeter, as we know from sort of the technical side of things, can alter your gait so significantly that you might pick up an injury. So if you're starting a training block for anything, because it takes like 10 minutes, go and have your gait analysed at Runner's Need or somewhere like that, and just get someone to confirm the kinds of shoes that you should be running in, and make sure that your shoes aren't slightly too small.
So many of us are wearing running shoes that are too small. I also think that if we're just talking about superficial injuries, like when I trained for my first marathon, it was the longest that I was on my feet. Some of those runs, like 3.5 hours and things, that were huge stints of time on my feet. And I struggled so badly with blisters. I sent Esther pictures of my blisters that made her hole. They were awful. They were so bad. And I have not, despite the fact that I'm still doing distances that are quite long, quite a lot of the time, I've not had blisters that have been nearly that bad since. And a big part of that, I think, was I was wearing shoes that were just half a size too small, because I really think not only should we all be wearing shoes that are a little bit bigger when we're, particularly if we're doing long distances, because our feet do swell up when we run, but also, do you think, tiny side note, that running shoe sizes are experiencing a little bit of a sort of industry creep at the moment, where because people buy a little bit bigger, they're then making them a little bit smaller to sort of almost like a pre-account for that? Because sometimes I'm normally a size 6 in my like everyday shoes. Sometimes I've got like a few 5.5s, but I'm wearing like 7.5 often with running shoes.
Yeah. I do think there's industry creep. This is probably another podcast, but I also think I do think that one of the biggest concerns in terms of women runners is that so many of our running shoes that we pick up are based on male anatomy.
Yeah.
That when we get a shoe that's supposed to be our size, it doesn't fit. So we have to size up even more. And I think there's something that's just, I don't know what it is. I find it so peculiar that, exactly the same as you. I've got my shoes downstairs that I walk around in are a 5, and yet I routinely run in a 6.5.
Yeah.
And sometimes a 6.5 will come along where I'm like, actually,
could be a 7.
Yeah, could easily be a 7 in that. And it's the weirdest thing. But we've talked about this before, haven't you? You have to come out of the sort of that slightly vain feeling about shoe size, and just you have to wear the shoe that fits. And it's not just fits, you have to have like a thumb's width of space between the end of your toes and the end of the shoe. You need space for that, particularly for race day.
Absolutely. Since I've let go of the idea that my feet need to be sort of dainty, I feel like in my running life, the blisters are not worth caring about. Being like, look at my tiny diddy little running shoes. No, I think I've got to go for 7s, really.
Yeah, and actually learn from someone that's learned the hard way, both of us, actually. But London Marathon for me was a disaster last year, and one of the reasons it was a disaster was because one of those very small injuries, because I'd picked up a black toenail, and because of the black toenail, my gait went funny. So I was running weirdly.
Yeah.
I couldn't really tell that I was, but I definitely was, because it was a painful toe. So then I was lolloping rather than running normally, which then meant that I pulled a calf muscle. So it was like tiny little things can have this huge kind of effect on the rest of your body. So it's worth, pay attention to your shoes and your socks.
Absolutely.
So I think get those things right.
Those things are definitely the, like, I don't know, the things that are specific to runners. The trying to segue into my weird thing I said earlier about like the rest of it is kind of quite holistic. I think that injury prevention stuff, and it is things that like the average healthy human being should be thinking about doing. We just have to think about it a little bit extra on top. And what you were just saying there about the little things has prompted me to think about sleep, which is something that I think we don't think about. Well, I mean, we all think about sleep, we love it, but in terms of like, you know, an hour or two's difference in what your normal night's sleep might be like, oh my gosh, it makes so much impact. Hang on, I've got a great stat from the lovely Dr. Mimi Runs, who I follow on Instagram. I'm obsessed with her. She's great. She said less than 7 hours consistently, if you're getting that per night, then you have a 70% increase in your injury risk.
70%? Oh my God.
That's mad, isn't it? So
that's absolutely mad. But then, I mean, likewise, I've seen many people talk about the sort of the triangle of greatness in terms of physical fitness and being race ready. And the base of the triangle, and the most important thing that you can do to ensure injury prevention, to ensure a good race day, to ensure that you're fit and whatever, the base of it is sleep. Sleep is so vital. It's so important.
It's so important. I'm not a watch wearer. I know you are. So yours tells you, doesn't it, whether you've had a good night's sleep?
Yeah, sometimes it lies. It doesn't really know when I've been lying awake fretting. It knows when I get up. It will occasionally sort of say bits and pieces. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I think it can help. But I think it's with or without a watch, we're talking about a time at which your body is repairing itself, recovering, and getting stronger. This all happens when you're asleep. So it doesn't happen down the gym, and it doesn't happen when you're running. All that repairing and recovery is happening when you're fast asleep. And so you need to sleep for as much as you possibly can. But I think the key is regular sleep, the same amount of sleep every night. It's making sure that you have great sleep hygiene, and, screens away, nice book, herbal tea, magnesium, get yourself a good 8+ hours. And
honestly, I think that's the thing. I remember giving up alcohol for the full taper of my marathon training, which, and I kind of looked it up and was like, is this too much? Am I going a bit mad here? And everything sort of did say that, like, the actual impact that any of that's going to have on your race day at that point, like, is, if you have a few glasses of wine 2 weeks before your marathon, like, no, you're not gonna, it's not going to impact you necessarily. However, the consistency and that sleep over that period would have been impacted by it.
Yes.
And so I totally stand by the fact that it was a really good thing to do, because it meant that my sleep was really, really good in that time leading up to the marathon. So I'm going to try and do a bit of a similar thing,
and I think, the other thing also is, because, which we'll get to when we start talking about race day, because the night before race day, if that's what you're gunning for, chances are you will have some restless sleep. It will be disturbed in some way because you might be anxious, you might be worried about things. And so if you've had 2 or 3 weeks of really good quality sleep, you've gone to bed at 10:30 every night, you've had a good 8.5 hours or something, whatever is good for you, and you've had that for the previous 3 weeks, it doesn't really matter if the night before the race you're kind of rolling around in bed and can't quite get to sleep properly. It's
as far as I'm aware, scientifically, I don't know this to be true, but I highly doubt you can cram sleep. I think probably, that is the sort of thing that you are so much better off building as you get up to race day. So, and particularly at this time, like, super important during your lead up to race day, but also after you've done a long run. I think I used to sort of like prioritize the night before my long run, which is definitely important to do as well. I'd be like, right, okay, not going to drink any booze, going to make sure that I'm in bed nice and early, going to do all my nice sort of sleep hygiene routine. And like, sometimes it's unavoidable a little bit with sort of social things getting in the way, that if you're trying to like do your long run on a Saturday morning before having a full weekend of doing lots of lovely things with your friends, it's hard. But as far as you can, trying to prioritize also the night after you've done a heavy session, getting a good night's sleep and having a proper chill and a proper chance for your body to recover is a really good way to lock in all of that great work and not let your body then be under more stress by not sleeping very well. Fully holding my hands up as somebody who went out this weekend and probably had about 5 hours sleep after my long run, which is not great. But
no, that's true. But so sleep is kind of the big one, the absolute big one. But the second biggest one is what we should get onto next, right? Which is going to have to be food.
And I don't know whether, again, full disclosure, I think this is speaking from the perspective of two people who don't always necessarily get this right. And I think we've both been on quite big journeys with this recently, trying to nail down the fueling around training, because we've talked about it in this series. We've talked about it plenty on our podcast, that lots of the dialogue around women and running is, don't overeat afterwards. It's so easy to just, be completely ravenous and replenish everything you've just done with a load of, like,
there's loads of that.
There's so much of that at the moment. Of here's why running is actually not in a good way to lose weight or whatever. I think if you can try to banish all of that thinking from your brain, whatever your goals around weight or strength or how your body looks, I think if you're talking about long distances particularly, like, you really, really need to prioritize eating enough before, during and after your runs to make sure that you are not getting injured. Because again, this was from the lovely Dr. Mimi. She was saying that there's a study that links, I think it's also particularly female athletes, to having a greater risk of injury if they're underfueling. Makes total sense, of course, but it's so easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's so easy to do, what do we need to be eating to prevent injury, like before, during, and after? What should we be doing?
Yeah. Well, as a person who I feel I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, and I think always seek expert advice if this is something that you are genuinely really concerned about. But just from an anecdotal perspective of what's worked for me, because I think at the beginning of January, I was actually really struggling with some of this slightly sort of diet culture-y stuff, and having gone for it a bit Christmas and then going, right, I can't keep replenishing my runs with 14 roast potatoes. So maybe going a little bit too hard the other way, and then teetering on a little bit of a knife's edge, I think, of risking getting injured and tiring myself out because I wasn't fueling properly. The things that I've added in to try to change this that I think have really helped me, and I think I am getting it a bit more right now.
Yeah.
I will make sure that I have something carby before I go for my run, especially a long run or an interval session. Probably if I'm doing an easy run or a shorter run, then I'll probably have my normal breakfast. But if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of mileage, or I'm going to be doing something that involves like long efforts or hard efforts,
Yeah.
I will have some sort of brown or seedy bread, like a bit of a complex carbohydrate. I don't think that's even necessary. I think you can have white bread and live your best life. But
Yeah,
I just
lots of people do recommend white
Yeah.
bread, but I think that the what you're used to is a good rule of thumb.
I just love Jason's seeded sourdough. So I love a bit of that. And then I will have probably like a half and half, actually, of something that is just going to give me a good little energy buzz that I might need, especially if I'm having it like an hour or so before I'm going out. Honey, I love honey and banana. Peanut butter, I love. Sometimes if I'm feeling very holy and sensible, I'll also incorporate a bit of nice protein. So maybe I'll have some cottage cheese on the other half. That's quite a nice winner at the moment. Then I will make sure, if I'm doing, and I know mentioned it lots on the pod, but reiterating that if I'm doing any longer than sort of 70 minutes, 60, 70 minutes of running, then I will have a gel, normally 40 minutes into the run, and then every half an hour or so from then onwards. And then afterwards, within about 20 minutes, this is stolen directly from Ailish McColgan, who gave us this advice.
Of course, yeah.
I will try to have something that's like, my sort of working ratio is like 2 to 1 carb to protein after I've had some, after I've like 20 minutes or so after I've done my run. So like, I mean, protein shakes that are like, have got lots of lovely things in them. Maybe I will have a piece of toast and some little chicken bites. Maybe I'll have, honestly, whatever I've got really at that point that I know will sort of fill that quota roughly, and will see me through to then probably also having some lunch.
Yeah.
Like, that's
just having a
not my
normal
lunch.
meal, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not your lunch. I think that's really important to say, isn't it? The kind of the gels that you take before you go, also actually really the breakfast you're eating before you go, and the thing that you have as soon as you get in through the front door after you've finished. Don't consider them part of your 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
That's your run. That's the fuel that you need for your run. And I think
it's so right.
It's really important to kind of to consider that. And I think that what you've said there is absolute classic and really kind of good rule of thumb to have the kind of the carbs pre, but everyone thinks of, not everyone, but it's very easy to think of carbs as being white rice, white pasta, white bread. It doesn't have to be like that. And you find carbohydrate in fruit and veg, so you have what you want, what you're used to, what your body's used to beforehand. But you use carbohydrates because that's the easiest way that your body can use the stores of energy in your body, is to use up the carbohydrate that you've put in there. So carbohydrate before, carbohydrate during, protein afterwards. And it was Ailish, wasn't it, who was saying, do you know what? Chocolate milk. It's just,
I had it
it's
the
a,
other day. I
yeah,
had a
really
white
good thing.
chocolate milk and it was so good. Honestly, love that bit. I think I was like, again, used to enjoy that bit, have maybe been slightly recently with a lot of the noise around weight loss at the moment, been a bit more like not allowing myself to enjoy that bit, like telling myself and everybody now, enjoy, please do enjoy that bit. I know it can be a little bit difficult trying to take on food sometimes. I love it, but not everybody wants to eat food immediately after they've run. But if you can, try and see it as like, yeah, okay, this is an opportunity to have something nice, something that my body is going to like use to do so much good work
Yeah.
and will really, really replenish all
Yeah. And
the
you can,
mega effort that I've just done, rather than seeing it as like,
absolutely.
oh, I wouldn't normally see chocolate milk as something that is necessarily good for my body or whatever.
Yeah, and I think I also think in the kind of within the past year, like we were just, like you were saying just earlier on, we've both been kind of working really hard to ensure that the stuff that we're putting in is great fuel for our bodies. And so sometimes it can feel like as though what we're putting in to recover from those runs to ensure that we don't get injured, like the old advice from, I mean, God, even 2-3 years ago, was so white carb and white sugar kind of dependent that it didn't feel as though that worked with all the rest of our lives where we're trying to be fit and healthy and strong and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff does work, but there are ways around it if what you really want to put in is stuff that feels like nourishes your body. So like the chocolate milk thing, for instance, milk is such a great protein source. And if you like dairy and if you like chocolate milk, then it's the perfect post-run
Mm-hmm.
replenishing tool. I don't like milk very much, but I do like certain protein powders. I've got one from, this is not an ad, but the organic protein company. I've got cookies and cream flavor. And I have to say that mixed with oat milk is delicious. And then I'm giving myself something like 16, 18 grams of protein in like one glass of something that doesn't feel as though I'm kind of battering my body with kind of refined sugars or something.
Yeah.
I also bake it into cakes.
Ooh.
I know. I found a mug cake recipe that used, and honestly,
Oh, I want that now.
Maybe I should put it in the show notes.
Oh, please. Yeah, I want that now. Well, actually, speaking of, because I guess that's the kind of thing that you could totally have straight afterwards, but also you might want to have like later in the evening or something. I will still notice, and it is normal and fine to notice that you might be hungry like in the evening after that long run. The next day, you might still be hungry. And so I think having an extra bit of carb is great. But it was actually a colleague of ours who's a PT that told me recently that she, like I said, that I was kind of struggling to kind of really fill myself back up again and to make sure that I was eating enough during these long runs, and I kept being ravenous. And she said adding a bit of extra fat to everything that you're eating is just a great way to just really up the kind of nutrient denseness of everything that you're eating. Make sure that you're getting those calories in that you've lost and that you're replenishing your body properly, but without necessarily, again, eating loads of white carb that might, for me, often makes me ravenous later because I burn through it. Whereas if I have like, I'm absolutely not saying there's anything wrong with that either. I also like to have a piece of toast or something, but having like a spoonful of peanut butter with my breakfast after I've done some exercise, or having extra hummus and avocado in a salad or a wrap, or a little bowl or something for my lunch, or bits like that. Having some nice treats, having dates covered in dark chocolate with a bit of peanut butter in the middle of them is my current absolute fave thing to have. I would love to say after I've been for long runs, being honest, every day, every single day of my life at the moment. So good.
And I'm also a sucker for seeds. So pan roasted pumpkin seeds on breakfast, like a kind of a mixture of different kinds of seeds on my salad at lunch. And I know that's giving me calories, it's giving me fat, it's giving me protein, and it's giving me fiber.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy with the addition of that to a couple of my meals. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, seeds for life.
Seeds for life.
Well, we've probably banged on a lot. Is there anything that we're missing in the picture of injury prevention here?
Right. What do we need to remember? No, I think I would reiterate, I can't remember if we did talk about it, but I know we've talked about it on past episodes, but the only thing that I would probably reiterate is the 10% rule and the drop down rule. So for me, my injuries came on as a younger runner when I didn't adhere to both of those things, which is only increasing my mileage by 10% and then not having drop down weeks in the midst of the training. And both of those things, I think, are slightly game changing in terms of preventing injury. But also, I reckon the thing that we should say is that if we're absolutely honest, you can't avoid injury. And so I think a little bit of realism with it is worthy. So it's really upsetting when you're injured, particularly if you're in a training block. But seek advice as soon as you possibly can from someone that you think is going to help you, just like Holly did.
And you.
And I did. And I did for once. So seek advice, get some help, and listen to the advice, because I did seek advice nice and early, didn't really listen to it. And I certainly wasn't listening to myself. So I think it's listen to that advice. And if you've got a long enough training block, chances are, if you give yourself the proper rest from that injury, you'll be able to tap right back into it at a few weeks down the line. But don't run on anything that is painful, anything that changes the way that you're running. Just go and seek some advice and get yourself fixed. Do something else that won't hurt you. And whatever you do, don't make it worse. That's the worst. That's the absolute worst thing.
No, I absolutely agree. I think even just this training block, I had a slightly sore quad a few weeks ago, and I had a 12-mile run on my plan, and I felt really, really guilty deciding to instead do a shorter distance. But I am so glad, looking back at that I decided to do a bit of a forced drop down for myself, because I think, don't you? You have a feeling when something isn't feeling quite right. And likelihood is, in terms of, unless you're doing it every week, then the difference to your overall fitness level, listening to your body will make, is not going to be huge. But the difference to your potential to actually be on that start line at race day, if you over push yourself and you don't listen to your body and you stick prescriptively to your training plan because you're scared of getting it wrong, could be devastating for your race day. So listen to yourself, look after yourself. And I think particularly at this point in your training, you are more likely to do yourself damage than you are to gain a huge amount more fitness. So I think if in doubt, rest, seek help,
and go to bed.
Eat lots, go to bed.
Yeah, maybe a new pair of shoes, but maybe not now. Too soon. But all of those things. I think the sleep is so important, but definitely learn from my mistake. Learn from my mistake. I didn't listen to myself. I ran too long, too soon, and I put myself back at square one. And I could be in the middle of training for, the London Marathon now, and I now can't do it because of that, because of being stubborn and silly and sticking religiously to a plan that wasn't created solely for me. So listen to yourself and eat all the food and go to bed.
Yeah.
She says, stop it and tidy up. Yeah.
Well, love you all. Keep going. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it's another week where you have no injuries at the injury factory, You can keep it as 0 as however many days since last injury.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, good luck to you all, and may your running continue to be pain-free and fun.